So I've already done 2 previous videos talking about different knee dislocation injuries, Shaun Livingston and Mackenzie Milton. But I gotta say, after reviewing everything more, I really feel like Zach Miller's injury was on a whole different level in terms of severity. What's going on, everybody? My name is Brian, and for those new to this channel, I'm a doctor and a sports fan, and it's my goal in this page to explain different sports injuries and sports medicine topics in a way that's easier for you to learn from and hopefully understand better. Zach Miller of the Chicago Bears nearly lost his leg after an injury suffered after a catch during the 2017 season. You might remember in some of the interviews he did afterwards telling the doctors on the way to the hospital, "Do not cut off my leg." While that might seem like a crazy thing to think about after just an injury on the football field, in this video, I'm going to explain to you why him losing his leg was an actual real risk and something that we worry about in players with knee dislocations. If you followed any of the news stories, you probably remember hearing about a torn artery that he had. We're going to look at the anatomy of the blood vessels around the knee and help relate that to the mechanism of his injury to explain why limb amputation is a real risk whenever players have knee dislocations. As always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of these videos, and let's get started. First, I want to look at the anatomy around the knee to help point out this blood vessel that was torn in the case of Miller. Here we have a basic model of our knee, and the different colors just represent where muscles originate or attach. But up top we have our femur, or the big thigh bone. In the front we have the tibia, or you can feel that's your shin bone. On the outside we have the thin bone, the fibula. And then of course we have all the various ligaments and structures inside the knee that we're not going to focus on in this video. If you want to learn more about the nerves that run around the knee, then go check out the Mackenzie Milton video. And if you want to learn some more about all these other structures in the knee, then go see the one I did on Shaun Livingston. Now, it's not these structures inside the knee that's important in an injury like this. It's what we find on the back side of the knee, in particular the blood vessels. This tube that I put on the back represents what we call the popliteal artery, and it's the big main artery that runs down the back of the leg to supply blood to the lower leg. Now, next to it there's also a vein and there's a pretty big nerve, but we're gonna focus on just the artery. And this thing is adhered pretty tight to the back of the knee. It's not right under the skin. It really is pretty much right in that groove on the back side of the knee. Of course, if the knee is just bending and working properly, that vessel's not going to be in any sort of stress, but you can imagine what might happen if a player were to really dislocate his knee and the possible stress that that could put on this blood vessel. Now, fair warning, we're going to take a look at the footage here, so if you don't want to see it, go ahead and skip ahead. But as we can see Miller land after making that catch, we can see that severe bending that occurs in his leg. What's happening as he plants, that leg is extended out far from him and it lands very straight, and a straight leg is not as good as supporting and maintaining that load whenever we land, and so it causes the knee to completely buckle and kind of bend completely backwards. If you think about that big blood vessel sitting on the back side of the knee, if we completely dislocate that joint, that blood vessel can potentially tear or rip, as was supposedly the case with Miller. So what does it have to do with amputating his leg? If you don't have blood flow to those muscles and the tissues in the leg, eventually they will die. And then dead muscle can become infected and cause other complications in the leg, and so in that case they would have to amputate or cut it off. And that's why there was so much concern about possibly having him lose his leg. And it's a really urgent thing. I mean, this is on the order of hours if there is compromise in the blood flow, that you have to try to correct it. Now, if you can restore the blood flow in time, then that's not as much of a concern. What are the doctors doing to try to evaluate to see whether or not they need to do surgery if he has a torn blood vessel? They break this down into something we can consider hard signs and soft signs. Hard signs are things we see on exam or testing that are more indicative that the blood vessel is torn or damaged. And one of the big things is absence of pulses, combined with some blood pressure type tests that they'll do on the leg as well. So first thing they're going to be doing is seeing if he has a pulse in his foot, and if there is zero pulse in the foot, that's an immediate sign that something serious could be wrong with the blood vessel. If they see any of these hard signs or more severe signs on exam, they're going to go straight to surgery. They're not even going to do a CT scan or waste time with this other stuff, because they know with enough confidence that the blood vessel is damaged and that time is critical. And there's a couple of different options for what they can do to repair this blood vessel if it's damaged. Going back to our model here, that blood vessel can be completely torn in half, it can be just pinched, it can be kind of clotted off, so there's a lot of different ways that that blood vessel might be affected based on the injury that will determine how you repair it. In the case of Miller, he commented in one of his interviews that they took a vein from his other leg and basically used it to reform that connection, or in some cases completely bypass the part of the blood vessel that was damaged. Once they do that, they're able to restore blood flow to the rest of the leg, but there's always potential for complications, as was such the case with Miller. You may recall from interviews, he mentioned he had somewhere around like 8 or 9 surgeries, and that the majority of these surgeries were to fix pressure that had built up in his leg, and then subsequently to sort of fill in and cover up the incisions. Something we worry about in sports injuries and surgeries in general is called compartment syndrome. Compartment syndrome happens whenever there's buildup of blood in some sort of compartment that's more rigid in something like an arm, a leg, or even the abdomen. Our muscles and our skin can only stretch so much, and so if you've got a bunch of blood that's pooling and building up in your leg, eventually it's going to run out of space to push and grow, and that pressure that builds up in the leg can cause even more damage to the muscles. This is one of the complications that can happen after they do surgery to repair these blood vessels, and that was reportedly the case with Miller. So what do they do to fix that? They do this surgery called a fasciotomy. Our muscles are covered with a thin layer of more fibrous tissue called fascia, and that's what really contains and keeps the muscle held together and in place. Whenever you have compartment syndrome, what they'll do is they'll go in and they'll actually cut that fascia to sort of break open the lining and give the muscle in the leg some more space to grow. Whenever they do that, the skin is pretty much cut all the way down the leg. They have these big open incisions while the pressure is being relieved, and then they have to do all these surgeries afterwards to try to get those incisions and those wounds to close back up. Last of all, what are we looking for in terms of, is he going to come back to the field? Will he be able to play again? We can assume by now that the blood flow has been restored, that the muscles are not dead or damaged, and that all the different ligaments and structures that were ruptured in the knee itself have been repaired and fixed. The thing we don't know as much that could have the biggest impact on his return is any sort of nerve damage. Along with this blood vessel, there are big giant nerves that run right in the back of the knee, and there's even nerves that wrap around the outside of the knee and go down the leg. Just as much as this blood vessel can get pinched when the knee dislocates, those nerves can get stretched and damaged. And those nerves are controlling our ankle and our foot muscles. Part of one of his video interviews, you can hear him talking about how he couldn't even move his ankle for like months, and that's potentially from some sort of nerve damage in the leg. So yeah, you can get your ligaments repaired, you can repair your ACL, whatever else might have been damaged, you can restore the blood flow, but you need the nerves to be functioning to do all those quick activities needed to play professional football. So that's really going to be the key to watch for his recovery. It's not as much the blood supply, it's not the ligaments in the knee, it's what long-term damage he might have from potential nerve injury. Either way though, he really is lucky to just have his leg. I mean, the fact that everything was so rushed, that they did this so quickly, there really is a real risk, even if they get surgery performed on time, that you could have so many complications that your leg has to be amputated. So I'm sure he's just grateful that that wasn't the case, and it's awesome that those doctors were able to do their best and actually save his leg. That's it for this video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something about why knee dislocations can potentially lead to something severe as your leg having to be cut off. I hope you have a better understanding of some of the anatomy around the knee and what they're going to be doing to try to repair that blood flow when it gets damaged. As always, thanks a lot for watching these videos, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.